Welcome in another edition of Green and Growing, another beautiful podcast. Steve Sparky Fifer here, 1250 a.m. The Fan. Follow me on Twitter at Sparky Radio. Nathan Marzion, he's over there at Nathan Marzion. You can follow him there at Nathan Marzion, like I just said. I got to get into talking about Bucks Kings from Sunday night as we record this here early Monday evening on the Odyssey Sports YouTube page, where you can find all these fine YouTube videos of the podcasts we do. You can also download us on the Odyssey app, where you download your favorite podcast at. And normally these things post Tuesday and Friday mornings during the course of the week. So I went to the game, took my 16-year-old, who about to be 17 next weekend for his birthday, got tickets, bought tickets, weren't cheap, but we got tickets on the lower bowl, and we went. And of course, he's wearing his Kings jersey because he's a big Kings fan. That's why he wanted to go. So I'm stuck with him. And we go to the game. Now, mind you, the game was at 6 o'clock, Marzion. The Packer game started at 3:30, Marzion. Now, wouldn't you think that if you're the Milwaukee Bucks, you would move the game time one way or the other? Either you move it to earlier in the afternoon, or you push it back 1 hour to, say, 7 o'clock to give everybody a chance to actually see more of the game before they head in. But they decide not to change the game time. So I'm figuring that, well, okay, they're not moving the game time. Clearly, they'll have the Packer game on some of the TVs in the concourses when I get there. No Packer games on any of the TVs. Might be one of the single dumbest things I've seen the Bucks do in the last 5 years or so easily. I really thought that it would be on the TVs. Nothing. So now I'm not happy at all, but it's the kid's birthday present, right? So I'm like, okay, fine, I'll deal with it. So I get my phone out. I'm like, okay, I got NFL Plus, Nathan. I got this. NFL Plus, baby. I got the NFL Plus thing I paid for. Boom, go. Froze. Exit out. Started back up. Plays for 3-4 seconds. Freezes again. I'm like, come on, man. So finally, the 16-year-old's phone, he got it to go. So I was able to watch it a little bit there. Pretty cool. They flashed the score up at one point in the first half. The whole place starts chanting, "Go Pack, go. Go Pack, go." I was like, all right. This is pretty cool. Then when they flash the final score up at the end of the game, same thing. Whole stadium goes crazy, screaming and yelling. And they do the whole "Go Pack, go, go Pack, go." But we wouldn't want to show the Packer game on the TVs there because clearly there were no Packer fans in the stadium that would actually want to watch it. So either way, so the Bucks game gets going. There were more Kings fans than I thought I would come across at this game. Like there was like a whole section of Kings fans like in the lower bowl, like up on the top of the lower bowl behind us, that I was really surprised by. And they were scattered throughout. So I've been to, this is my third game this year. You've been to more games than me. Does it feel to you like there's more visiting fans coming now than before? Does it feel like it's about the same, less? What would you say in your history of a Bucks fan going to games and having visiting fans being there?
To me, it hasn't been anything very different. I think it's been about the same. I mean, Boston had a decent amount of fans, but that seems normal. I feel like they have a pretty large fan base. And
Yep.
I mean, I don't know, they weren't noticeable because they didn't have anything to cheer about in that game. But I haven't noticed anything out of the ordinary with it. Like it seems like there's always going to be some visiting fans, of course. I've been surprised at with the couple of road games I've been to the last 2 years, how many Bucks fans there have been, because it's just something that I don't think was ever the case prior to, 2018 when this team became really good and Giannis became a superstar. I don't think there was anybody going to, not many Bucks fans going to a game in Cleveland or whatever. But you
There
go
were
there
bandwagon fans, though. Now you have bandwagon fans in Cleveland that are Bucks fans now because Giannis is the man, and so now they're a Bucks fan. When Giannis leaves,
I know.
You won't see them anymore at those games, I promise.
Yeah, no, I am very interested to see how that all changes. Even just the fan base in Milwaukee once Giannis is gone, because even if the team is good, I feel like just Giannis alone makes so many people a fan, and I think there's so many kids and there's so many just people in general that are just like, well, I just like Giannis, so I'm gonna be a Bucks fan. But it's like I'm very interested to see what happens when he's not there, because again, I mean, my buddies and I, I'm sure will go to some road games, throughout our lives. Like I'm sure we'll be going to road games for a while, and so to see how it changes, and there's a possibility that in 7-10 years we're back to being there's no Bucks fans at these road games compared to right now, where you go there and it's like, all right, honestly, like I feel like 1/5 of these people are Bucks fans. So it's been interesting, but I don't think anything at Fiserv has changed too much.
I'll say this much. When Giannis is gone, I believe this ownership will be gone as well. I think they also will sell, get out, bye-bye, see you later. And they'll be on their way out of town. And I'm also concerned that that Deer District will be a complete ghost town once Giannis is out of town, because I think attendance will drop dramatically at that point as they try. Now, again, unless it becomes a Packers situation, right? I mean, if it's a Packers situation and somewhere in one of these first round picks, they stumble across a superstar, with one of their picks, okay, well, that's obviously different, right? I mean, you go from Favre to Rodgers to Love. Okay, so if you go from Giannis to next superstar, next MVP type player to be, one of the faces of the league, if you get that type of luck like the Packers, then I think the owners stay. Everything is the same. I can't imagine these dudes from New York are staying here if this team decides they go through some long rebuild here, knowing they're not going to sign a free agent to come here and play at a high level, knowing they're going to have to get lucky and do it through the draft yet again in order to get there. Like I would be absolutely stunned if they were still the owner of this team, say 10 years after Giannis left. I'd be absolutely shocked.
Yeah, no, I agree. I don't think that. I kind of think it all kind of fall apart at the same time, and I don't think that time is anywhere very close right now. But you just think that at some point, Giannis is gone, the whole thing changes a bit. They're gonna have to try to bridge the gap between Giannis and the next generation, but you don't know how that's gonna work. You don't know if it will work. You don't know if it's gonna happen. So, if there is a rebuild, if it is, okay, we're losing Giannis and this clearly is going to be a bad team all of a sudden, then yeah, I could see the owners changing, and I could just see the whole process kind of restarting a little bit, and all of a sudden you got to work your way back up.
We need to get you a girl before that happens. I'm just telling you, because otherwise you will be in a state of depression after this all goes down. Because if they're winning like 15, 16 games again every year, you are just gonna be one depressed dude, man. Like
that would be my sign to settle down and be like,
oh,
all right,
it is
okay. It's time. Once the Bucks are no longer contenders, no longer like Giannis is gone, and it's just like, all right, we're starting it over. That's when it's like it's time to settle down a little bit. It's time to, I'm still gonna be a diehard Bucks fan, but it's like, all right, maybe it's time to not make this my entire life. Maybe I should focus on some other things for a little bit.
Marzion's got life in perspective. He knows how this is going to work. He's got a plan in his life. He's got goals.
The timeline kind of works out. I'm enjoying these great moments while in my early 20s, and it's nice. And I feel like once I hit like around 30 is when it'll start to be like, okay, now it's time to move on. It's time to, and I'm not saying move on as in don't be a Bucks fan anymore. I'm saying as in this might not be my 100% primary focus all the time, like it is right now. So we'll see.
Around 30 is also the age when weight doesn't fall off you as nearly as easily as it does in your 20s. That's also when you'll start to notice that process kick in too with your metabolism. Anywho, let's talk about this Bucks Kings game Sunday night a little bit more in depth. So we're at the Bucks game, and Giannis, which we'll get to in a little bit here, at the free throw line multiple times late in this game, and misses the second free throw at the end. Fox gets it, runs down, hits a shot. My 16-year-old's up, yelling and screaming and carrying on. Everybody around us is looking at him like, oh, Lord. And he's been talking the whole game, mind you. Like, he's been chirping the whole game about his Kings. So now they get a 6-point lead in overtime. And like I said, there was like a group of Kings fans above us, like, I don't know, several rows behind us. And they start chanting, light the beam, light the beam, light the beam. So my idiot kid, he stands up. Yeah, light the beam, light the beam. I'm like, man, shut up, sit down. So he sits down. And man, when Damian Lillard hit that three, dude, oh my goodness. Everybody around us was all looking at him like, you are going to hear it now, man. And he was like, I give him credit. I didn't tell him to do any of this, but it got all done. He took it. Then he turned around to these two guys that were sitting behind us and shook their hands and said, hey, man, good game, man. That was a lot of fun. A good game, whatever. And he was cool, whatever. And it was supposed to be his birthday present. So he's still never seen the Kings win a game. Still has not happened. He's not seen him beat the Bucks. We go down to Chicago to watch him play the Bulls. He has not seen them beat the Bulls even at this point. And it's games that we've got tickets for. So still winless. But damn. I mean, when Fox was at the line, he goes, you better make both these because darn right well Lillard is going to come down here and shoot it from God knows where and probably hit this shot. And when he missed that second one, he goes, yeah, we're screwed. And down comes Lillard on the pass for Brooke. He raises up, hits that shot, and his head just dropped. Like, come on. But that is something you don't do that with Middleton, right? I love Drew Holiday, but you ain't doing that with Drew, and you surely aren't doing that with Giannis. If Lillard's not on this team, they lose that game probably.
Yeah, and that's been the story of quite a few games this year where no, it hasn't been super pretty, it hasn't been great, but at the end of the game, you're like, man, like Dame just makes the plays. Dame is, he's clutch. He just and even when he's not the one making the play, it's like he opens it up so much for others that you're just like his presence is such a difference maker late in these games where people, they had to pick him up from 30 feet out, and all of a sudden Giannis has room, and all of a sudden they collapse even more on Giannis, and then boom, you have someone else that's wide open, and it's just I thought two of the late possessions where I think they were both in overtime where the Bucks didn't score on them, but they got really good looks from Beasley and one from Connaughton, where I was like, I'm not going to complain about those possessions because they ended up with wide open corner threes. They didn't go in, but it was like, man, this offense in the clutch, it works. It just going to these two guys, and that was without even having Chris, which adds a whole nother element to the having the mid range game and that pull up shooting. But yeah, Dame just he's the man in these moments. He's the guy that instills fear in the opponent, in these situations. Unlike, again, I mean, not that Chris is not a clutch player or Giannis is not a clutch player, but they just aren't the same type of player
Right.
that Dame is in these moments. It's like you give Dame the ball and it's just like you feel like any shot that goes up is going in. So it's awesome to have that guy on our team. And again,
When
I
that
think
ball got in, when that ball got inbounded, did you go, it's over? What kind of confidence did you have? Name out of that ball and Lillard's racing down the court. Were you thinking it's over? Or
I was I was just thinking don't pass it. Like, I was like, "Don't pass
oh
up a
yeah,
game." I didn't want him to, like, "Okay, I'm gonna give it to Giannis or give it to someone," and they go up for a 2, and it's like, "No, no, no, just Dame, like, make the decision, go up confidently, boom," and it was awesome to see it go in, like, I was going crazy. Um, and, especially because it was funny, like, he struggled a little bit at the start of the, like, overtime in the
yep.
clutch period where, he had that, he missed a shot, and then he had the turnover, that where I think it was Fox picked his pocket and all of a sudden he dunks, they're down 6, and it was kind of like, damn, maybe it's just not Dame time tonight. And all of a sudden, right out of that timeout, he hits a 3, and then it's like, okay, and then he get fouled on the 3, made the three free throws, and then hits the game winner. So, yeah, I mean, it was just awesome to see him kind of turn it on there and show us, again, what he's capable of doing in those moments, something that Blazers fans are very used to, but it's like unless you watch a guy consistently and watch a team consistently, like you don't always see that stuff. Like, okay, yeah, Dame's clutch, but it's like to see it actually on your team in real life, like happening. It's awesome to see. And again, it just gives you a whole different confidence in this team when they're late in a close game that you have that guy. And it's like if he doesn't come through, you live with it because it's like that's the guy you want taking the shot out of almost any player in the league. In a clutch moment, him taking the 3, like if it doesn't go in, you live with it. You're not gonna it at that point. It's just like whatever. Whereas when you had Drew, when you had and didn't have a guy like Dame, it's like you're not all when Drew's missing threes late, it just you're not like happy with that shot. You're not happy with, oh, I'm fine just living with Drew Holiday taking threes. It's like, no, but that's the way it is with Dame, where you're pretty comfortable in that position no matter what, and you're gonna hope it goes in, and most of the time it is.
Take a quick time. I'll come back. I want to talk about some other things that stand out in that game. Pat Connaughton being on the floor in those moments. Got to talk about that. And we got to talk about Mike Brown just absolutely losing his crap during that basketball game, too. That's coming up next here on Green and Growing. Download on your Odyssey app, or if you download your favorite podcast app, check us out on the Odyssey Sports YouTube page. Like, subscribe, follow, ring that bell for notifications, too. Back after this. Hey, it's Sparky Fifer, 1250 AM The Fan. Check out the interviews I do throughout the week at 1250amthefan.com. On Twitter at Sparky Radio. He is our guy, Nathan Marzion. Follow him on Twitter at Nathan Marzion. Talking about Dame time against the Kings on Sunday night. A huge shot down the stretch. Couple of huge shots down the stretch, but obviously the game winner. Other things to talk about in that game. Pat Connaughton being on the floor late in that game. Now, I know, right? I know. Marcus Johnson in Byington, Connie's corner or whatever the heck they call it, when he hits those corner threes, and it's fun, it's cute, okay, haha, that's a good one. But realistically, dude, and again, I've not been on your side for a majority of the year on this whole, we got to have a wing, if it gets him off the floor, I'm open to suggestions at this point. if that gets that dude off the floor. Now, again, he's probably not on the floor if Middleton is on the floor. So we have to remember that Middleton was off. So maybe he's not out there if Middleton is playing. But man, every time he caught that ball, I was like, nope, ain't happening. And everybody gets up because, again, Connaughton is a huge Bucks fan favorite. He is, regardless of if I like him or if Nathan likes him or whatever. People love this dude in this city. They love Pat Connaughton. So anytime he gets up to rise and shoot, you think it's Curry taking a damn shot. The way everybody stands up expecting Connaughton to knock down a shot. I'm not one of them. I'm just sitting there going, oh boy. That's kind of my reaction. Your thought, I mean, I know you like Connaughton more than I do, and you think I'm hard on him, obviously. But your thoughts on Connaughton being out there late in that game?
I get it. I mean, and I understand he hasn't been great this year, hasn't given you much. I will say, and well, let me start off and just say, yeah, that game specifically, it makes more sense because you don't have Chris, so obviously someone has to take that spot, and Crowder's out. So then, I mean, that takes like when Crowder's in, when Chris is in, Connaughton would not be in that spot. Connaughton would not be getting the same minutes he was getting. Plus, Andre Jackson was in foul trouble, so he who started the game had to kind of come out. So all of a sudden, you're down to like I don't know 7 guys that you're really comfortable playing. Like it was either Connaughton or Bobby, and I don't know if they were comfortable having Bobby out there at that point. So they went with Pat. So I don't mind it in that game. Now if Chris was playing and they're still playing Pat at the 2 late or something, then I'd be like, what are we doing here? Why is he still getting those minutes? But in that specific game, I understand it. And as I said, I know he hasn't given us a ton. Like I know he's just kind of out there a lot of the times. But I will say, I mean, he gets a lot of flack. The guy is shooting 39% from 3 since mid-November. So it's not like he has, oh my God, he's been awful shooting. He can't hit anything. Like he still makes his threes at a decent rate. I think in a game like that where you're down a couple guys, just having a guy that you're like, I'm just going to plant you in the corner. And if you're open, take a 3. And he's a near 40% 3-point shooter. I'm fine with it in that situation. Like, I'm just like, whatever, obviously it's not your preferred guy out there. But again, when you're shorthanded like they were, and you don't have two guys that probably would be playing over him in that situation, I don't mind it. I also think it's interesting that Marzion once again got no minutes.
But
2 games in a row.
But AJ Green did, who wasn't hitting his shot either. Yeah, one,
Yeah.
I think, on the night.
Yeah. And so I mean, AJ Green, as we've said, is kind of a throw him in there. If he's hot, keep him in. If he's not, you kind of got to get him out of there type of player. And I think you could do the same with Pat. Like at this point, I think they're kind of interchangeable where
I'm with you.
I don't think Pat's good enough that you're like, no, just leave him out there and give him set minutes all the time. I think he's more of and that's why I have no problem trading Pat if they can trade him, because I think you can get the same thing from AJ Green that you're getting from Pat as just a shooter that if you need some shooting, or if you're just like, okay, like throw him in there for 5-ish minutes and see if he's hot or not. And then maybe you can put him back in later, or else if he's not hot, just kind of keep him on the bench. But yeah, I thought it was interesting. Marzion didn't play again because he didn't play in that game against Golden State. And, you didn't know, okay, is that just because they're saving him because it's a back-to-back? They might, want him when they rest Chris tomorrow or whatever. Or is this actually like them moving away from him? And, in a game with no Chris, no Jay, the main guys are all playing their second night in a row. So they're a little bit tired. Andre Jackson's in foul trouble, and Marzion still did not see the court. So I think that is pretty telling as far as how they're feeling about him right now. Because I think if they had any type of real confidence in him, they would have played him, at least some in these 2 games. So I'm interested to see how that works. I'm interested to see if a trade comes or what, because and I'm not saying I disagree with them not playing him. I haven't seen anything that makes me go, oh, he needs to be playing. And they see him in practice every day. They see these guys more than we do. So I'm going to trust their opinion on it. But just interesting to see. Like I noticed that more than I did Pat being out there. Because again, I kind of just chalk Pat being out there to just, well, there's no Chris and no Jay. You're going to have to put someone in that spot. And they just chose Pat that night.
And Andre Jackson worthless. I mean, and again, those are what happens on nights where he gets in foul trouble, and then it's just hackathon all night with that dude. He can't seem to control himself.
He's again, I like him more than Marzion still, because I think usually, or at least sometimes, like he can have some really good games. Andre Jackson, like he was awesome the night before. He was great
Yep.
against the Warriors. He had offensive rebounds. He was energy. I think he played, like 20 something minutes, and he looked really good out there. And it was like, okay, like he's a little bit of a game changer tonight. And then, again, and then he'll have the games where he's just over aggressive, foul trouble, and all of a sudden he can't really play. But this kind of shows why I never wanted to people earlier in the season were kind of, like let's trust that these rookies can be, or these young guys, Marjan's not a rookie, but let's trust that these young guys, Marjan and Ajax, can kind of, develop and be those wing stoppers we need come playoff time. And it's like, you can't trust either of these guys for a playoff series. Andre Jackson, you can put him in, you can give him minutes, but there's going to be games like this where all of a sudden you're like, no, this guy cannot play tonight. Like he picks up 2 fouls in a minute and you're like, no, he's got to get back on the bench. He'll have games where he looks good, but it's not someone that I'm willing to trust game in, game out in a playoff series because he hasn't shown it to us game in, game out. And same with Marjan. There's really no part of his game that has been consistent all season. So, and again, they're just kind of moving away from him at this point. So I don't trust either of those guys to be the answer and be someone that I want to really be relying on come playoff time. I'd rather have them as a last resort type of option than someone you're like, no, we like Andre Jackson's, getting 15 minutes a game in the playoffs. Like, I'm not comfortable with that. So that's why, again, it kind of reinforces my belief that you've got to make a trade, either Pat or Bobby Marjan, to get a new defender in here that you can rely on. And then you're not, you don't need Andre Jackson in there every game. It's more of a guy you can have as a little bit of a luxury or a little bit of a last resort type of defender if you really need it, or if an injury happens or something. But I'm not at all on board with like sticking it out with these young guys as the answer for these defensive problems.
Here's Nathan Marzion, Steve, Sparky, Fifer. Take another quick time. I'll come back. I do want to get into that Mike Brown thing, but I also first want to get to Giannis being on the floor late in that game because I was irritated being at the game last night at Fiserv Forum with him out there, and then them passing him the ball on top of everything else, and passing him the ball really made me irritated, setting him to the line. So we'll talk about that coming up next. It is Green and Growing on your Odyssey. Wherever you download your favorite Odyssey, wherever you download your favorite podcast at Odyssey Sports YouTube page. You can check us out there. We stream this bad boy live when we record on Mondays and Thursdays, posted on Tuesday and Friday mornings. Like, subscribe, follow, hit that bell for notifications, all that fun stuff. Back after this. Hey, C Sparky Fifer, 1250 AM, The Fan, broadcasting live from beautiful, cold, very, very cold Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Follow me on Twitter at Sparky Radio. Follow Nathan Marzion at Nathan Marzion. Talking about the Bucks taking care of the Sacramento Kings on Sunday. Dame time, baby. He takes over late in overtime, including hitting a buzzer beater to send the Sacramento Kings home quietly as the Bucks get another victory. And Giannis was on the floor late in that game in regulation. And the first time he went to the free throw line, he was on the opposite side of the floor from where they were inbounding it all by himself. Because obviously nobody on the Kings thought they were going to be dumb enough to throw him the ball. So they were all just kind of, all right, we're going to guard who's in front of us and he can sit out down there because obviously they're not going to throw him the ball and they don't want him to have the ball, which would have been the smart plan. I agree. That's what I was thinking. And instead they throw him the ball. Then he holds the ball. Oh, come follow me. I'm good. Okay. So to the line he goes, and I'm telling you, I know he made the first two. And you're going to say, well, see, Spark, he made the first two. What are you mad about? That's not the point. The point is, I don't want him in that situation. I don't want him at the line to be in that damn situation. I don't. And I understand, right, that he's the MVP type player and he's the face of the team. And you're not going to tell Kobe Bryant to sit down at no, but you know what? You tell Shaq to get his big fat butt off the court because you don't want him shooting free throws in situations like that. Or Mutombo or some of these other big dudes. Look, it's no different. Is he shooting free throws?
No, it is different. Hey,
no,
hold on.
No,
it is different.
It's not different.
Look, Giannis this season, and
yes, I know he's shooting better. I know
85% on clutch free throws this season. That is not Shaq. Okay.
No, you're right.
You can say you don't love him being at the line. I don't love it either. I'm not like, oh yes, Giannis got the ball, he's going to the line. No, but it's not Shaq. He's been a clutch free throw shooter this year. He's out there to me, and I have no problem with it because he is the safety blanket. Because number one,
the safety blanket is somebody that you believe in will go and hit shots. That's
no, the safety blanket. No, I'm talking about safety blanket as in being able to inbound the ball if nothing is there. Okay, we can always either Giannis will be open because they're not going to defend him, or if someone even is defending Giannis and you can't find anyone, you can lob it up in his direction. He can usually get the ball over someone.
Sure.
Whereas who else are you going to put out there that you can put out a bunch of guards, but if they can't get open, you might not be able to inbound the ball. And I would rather inbound the ball to Giannis than not inbound the ball at all. So, and now there's two things. Number one, I agree. I'd rather see him when he gets the ball looking to get rid of it before they can foul him if he has time. I don't want him holding the ball like, come foul me. I'd rather it be, okay, let me try to get it to someone else. Now, if they're covered, then yes, hold the ball. Um, at the same time, when Giannis did that last season, I feel like people complain about it both ways because people complain that he holds the ball to go to the line. But last season, in game 5, their final game against the Heat, he gets the ball with 6 seconds left on a jump ball, and the Heat are trying to foul, and he immediately tries to get it to Chris, which was a good play because he saw Chris was open, threw it to Chris, but right as he threw it to Chris kind of went the opposite direction. All of a sudden, the ball kind of almost gets lost, and people clowned Giannis for saying he doesn't want to shoot free throws, and I'm like, well, he shouldn't be the one that's trying to shoot free throws in these scenarios because he's not as good of a free throw shooter. So to me, if you're gonna, and I'm not saying you do this, but the people that are going to complain about Giannis holding the ball and going to the line can't be the same people that are making fun of him for trying to look for Chris or getting the ball out of his hands,
No,
quickly.
I'm just saying. I'm just saying I don't want him on the floor. Period. In that situation where you're up,
but then who do you have
the
on the
jump
floor?
ball situation? It's a close game. Okay, well, obviously he has to be on the floor. If it's close. But in this situation where you're up, they're going to foul. He doesn't have to be out there because they're going to foul somebody. They're not going to run an offensive set. They're not going to run an offensive play. They don't need him out there.
But wouldn't you rather have? Wouldn't you rather have a situation where you're like, I know worst case scenario, I can lob it up to Giannis or give it to Giannis who's open, rather than saying, I mean, who are you going to put in his position that you're comfortable, like they'll get open and get the ball? The other thing I was going to say about this, like, number one, I want Giannis, if he gets the ball and has time to try to give it up. Yes. Number two, I do wish they had a better play to get Dame the ball because it seems like, they have like something they kind of do, but it usually is able to just kind of get sniffed out right away. They just cover Dame and they don't really get him open. And all of a sudden it's like, okay, nobody's open. All right, just throw it to Giannis because it's, again, throwing to Giannis is better than having a 5-second violation or throwing the ball away.
And the other team's not going to guard Giannis. They want you to throw the ball to Giannis.
Yeah. And so, I mean, again, to me, I don't have a problem with it because it's the safety blanket, being able to throw the ball in at, worst case scenario, we have the ball in one of our guys' hands and he's going to the line, rather than not knowing where the ball is going to end up going. To me, that's the thing. Whereas if they didn't have Giannis out there, I don't know who they'd end up throwing the ball to. Like, if nobody's getting open, I don't know. Like, I just don't know who you're putting in Giannis' spot that you're like, oh, okay, that guy will be able to get open. I don't know.
I don't necessarily worry about it to that degree. If I don't think somebody can get open, other teams don't have Giannis. They find ways to get guys open and get them the basketball. You've got, now again, last night they didn't have Middleton out there, fine, but you still have Middleton and Lillard that are both all-star type players. Hopefully one of them can get open. And if you don't get one of those two, you certainly can have 3 other players out there that you feel more comfortable about getting the ball and getting to the free throw line than you do with Giannis at this point. And again, he deserves credit. He's shooting better this year than he has in the past. No question. I'm just saying, in a situation like they were in against the Kings at the end of regulation, that to me, I was just like, what are we doing? And I get it. Like, he's a wide open, throw him the ball. I understand. But I just, to me, I wouldn't have had him out there. Okay, go ahead.
And I would say, I mean, I'm not saying I'm trying to get him the ball by any means. Like, again, for me, I'm fine with it as long as you're trying to get it to someone else first. You're looking for Dame. You're looking for, again, Chris wasn't in the game, which is part of this, but you're looking for Dame. You're looking for someone else. And if nothing's open, you have no timeouts, then you give it to Giannis and you're like, okay, we just got the ball in. I'll take it. Like, that's fine. That's what I'm assuming is, when we're talking about this, like, I'm assuming they do all those things first and then they give it to Giannis. I'm fine with that. Now, if they're running plays to get Giannis the ball, or if they're, if in that situation they got it and immediately just threw it to Giannis without even trying to get it to Dame, yes, I'd have a problem with it because that's dumb to me. But yeah.
Yes, I agree. One last thing here before we wrap up on Green and Growing. The Mike Brown thing, I got to tell you what, everybody at that game, including myself and my kid, were super confused by what the hell was going on. All of a sudden, you see Mike Brown jump out in front of the referee, throwing his arms out there like he was going to hit the referee or something, screaming and yelling and carrying on when the ball was coming back the other way. We're like, what the hell happened? Like, what is he all mad about? And then you see somebody finally shows the play where Campaign hooks Fox, And that's what he was screaming and yelling about, that Fox got screwed on. And obviously he was trying to get kicked out of the game. That's what he was doing. He was trying to get his team some momentum and so forth. And he was trying to prove a point. And let me also say, he is the first head coach I've ever seen bring a laptop to a post-game presser and have it loaded in with the plays he wanted to show. Because obviously they had time to put together whatever they wanted for a video because he was sitting back there for a while. So he comes to the presser and goes, let me show you why I got kicked out. Here, look at this. And then he replays it. Let me show you. And that was the most prepared, kicked out coach of a sporting event I've ever seen in my life. He had a point to prove, and he was going to put it on display after that one. I've seen Mike Brown get upset. Don't get me wrong. But I've never seen him run on the floor to like literally get in a ref's face like that with his arms flailing and everything else. And Malik Monk is like on his back, like on top of his back, trying to hold him back. And you can see him like gritting his teeth, like, come here, come over here, get away from him, and trying to pull him back. That was wild. I've never seen anything like that at a game.
Yeah, no, it was funny. And I mean, I never have a problem with guys, coaches getting kicked out, arguing calls. Like, I know it's part of the game. It's part of like, you're not going to let that stuff happen to your team. You're going to, in an early on in games, guys complain about calls more because they're trying to get it in the ref's head of like, hey, that's a call like that. You got to make that. You got to make that and try to get them to call it the next time. So I didn't have a problem with it or anything. The only thing I got annoyed at with him in that post game was like, he right away goes, oh, well, first half they had 19 free throws and we had 6. And it's like I just hate when coaches do that because they're free throws. You're not always supposed to have even free throws. Like just because the free throws weren't even doesn't mean the officiating wasn't even. Some teams get to the line more than others. Some teams play a style that gets to the line more than others. When you have Giannis and Dame, you're going to get to the line a lot more than a team that just is shooting a lot of threes. So that's the one part I get annoyed by is when coaches seem to assume that, like Monty Williams did this a ton last year, where he'd always complain about the free throw discrepancy. It's like your team is full of mid-range shooters. Like you guys just take mid-range shots all game. You're not going to get as many free throws as a team that's in the paint and doing like and around the rim, drawing contact. Like it's not. I just hate that people assume that just because the free throws are different means the officiating was bad.
Well, let's go over some facts. Facts are in the NBA, superstars get calls. That's how it goes. I mean, I'm sorry. I've sat here and done a number of Bucks post-game shows where they had Michael Redd, who was not a superstar. They had Andrew Bogut, who was not a superstar, and they would not get the same calls as Kobe and Shaq. It just wasn't happening. So when the Lakers would come in, Bucks fans, oh my God, look at the free throws, screaming, yell. Yeah. And I always said, when you get a superstar, if we ever get one, you'll see it'll come back the other way. And you could say Giannis still gets screwed on some calls and doesn't get all the calls, fine. But when you have him and Lillard, who's going to get there 8 to 10 times a game, both on the floor together, of course you're going to win the free throw battle 9 out of 10 times. And my kid was complaining about the free throw discrepancy too. He's like, look at that. I said, you got a soft team. That's what you got. You got a soft team. I watch this team. I mean, you're a fan, so I would say I watch a bunch of Kings basketball in our house because you're always watching them. Y'all soft. I mean, Sabonis, great player, whatever. But other than that, you got a bunch of jump shooters on this team that are trying to figure it out. Keegan Murray's not a big physical, over-aggressive player. He got lost in that game, by the way. I don't know what happened to him.
He got hurt.
Yeah, he was missing in action. Herder probably had the best game he's had in a while for Sacramento because he hasn't been all that great this year to this point. But yeah, I mean, they're like you said, they're kind of a softer team. That's more of a jump shooting team. They're not as nearly as a physical outside of Sabonis. They don't really have any physical players on that team at this point. And the Bucks do have some guys that can get after. Plus, they got 2 superstars. So 9 out of 10 times, they're going to win the free throw battle against most NBA teams.
And I didn't even think, like, at least lately, I don't think Dame's gotten that great of a whistle. I feel like there's been plenty of times he could have shot more free throws. I feel like they've kind of screwed him a lot on these shots where he's going up and they call it on the floor. And it's like, well, he was in a shooting motion, but so I don't like Dame. I mean, I'm not saying Dame gets a bad whistle by any means, but I just think, Dame could have shot even more free throws than he did last night. Like, I don't. And the other thing Mike Brown did in his interview was he's like, well, on this one, they called this a foul. And, I don't remember if it was Fox or Monk. He's like, he barely puts his arm on Dame. It's like, well, that's still a foul. Like, just because he barely put his arm on Dame doesn't mean he didn't put his arm on Dame. Like, he touched him that as he's in a shooting motion, like, that's a foul. I don't care if it's barely. I don't care if he hit him in the face. Like, they're both fouls. So I that type of stuff where I'm just like, a foul is a foul. I to the extent of how hard you fouled them doesn't really matter that much. Even if it's just a little bit less obvious, it's still a foul. So I don't know. I just people complain about the refs all the time, and there's times where it's legit. There's times where it's like, okay, you got screwed on that one, or you were getting a really bad whistle all night, blah blah blah. I don't think the Kings got called for a foul like the whole fourth quarter, until late when they were intentionally fouling. It's like I don't. I mean, I just didn't look at that game and think, oh, the Bucks are really getting the better whistle tonight. It's like I don't know. I just thought it was a pretty normal officiated game.
When we talk about this Bucks team, 3 next games are Cavaliers, Pistons, Pistons. Am I crazy to think I expect 3 wins? Am I okay doing that as a Bucks fan, that I should expect
Yeah.
3 wins in the next 3 games?
I did tweet
Uh-oh.
this today. I said, I think, and I'm not predicting they do this, but there's a way you could rest Giannis, Chris, Dame all a little bit in this little stretch here and still go 3-0. You could sit Chris on Wednesday, and play Cleveland and still potentially beat them. Not an easy game, but I think you could still beat them without Chris. And that would give Chris, after sitting yesterday
Sundays.
and them not playing until Saturday after Wednesday, that gives him 6 whole days off. You could sit then Giannis or Dame on Saturday against Detroit. I think you can still beat Detroit with one of those guys sitting and Chris back and Brooke. And that would give that guy 4 days off and have them playing only 1 game in 7 days. So that gets a nice rest for him. And then you'd sit the other one, either Giannis or Dame, that Monday against Detroit. Again, I think you can still beat Detroit both of those games. And that would give that guy 3 days off. So if they wanted to, I think they can kind of, sit guys strategically here without sitting 2 in the same game and without really jeopardizing your chances to win a game, and give each guy a little bit of rest, a little bit of a mini break here if they wanted to. I don't know that they'll do it, but if they wanted to, I think the opportunity is there.
One other piece of news here before we get out of here. Giannis starts his own media company, has his own feature movie or whatever coming out. I love the name of it. Something like The Amazing Journey of Giannis or something like that. I mean, come on. But I'm thinking to myself, I saw the press release. I was like, didn't we just do this? Didn't Disney just do a whole movie on you? Wasn't your family like there and like dictating what all was going on with the film to make sure it was accurate? Now you are going to go relaunch your own. So I don't know. I'm assuming it's going to be much different, obviously, than what the Disney one was. So we'll see how it goes. But props to him for, like LeBron, getting his hands in a bunch of different projects and keeping that money flowing as much as possible. So it's not just all tied up in basketball. So props to Giannis for being motivated enough to go do this. He is Nathan Marzion. We'll go back and do this again Thursday night. Steve Sparky Fifer. Follow him at Nathan Marzion. Follow me at Sparky Radio. Enjoy the rest of your day. Don't forget, on your Odyssey app, you can download it. You also can download it anywhere else you download your favorite podcast at, Spotify, Apple, Google, whatever the case may be. And then, of course, on the YouTube Odyssey Sports page as well. We're there too. Enjoy the rest of your night. Have a good one. Toodles.